Slasher movies. Any Gen X person should remember that feeling of watching them back in the 80s. Tonight, Bruce wants to talk about his favorite slasher films and asks the question, why has the genre almost gone away? Are the next generations of viewers getting soft? Let's find out, shall we?
Hello and welcome back to my channel. Tonight, you saw the title, we're going to talk about slasher films. And the reason we're going to talk about slasher films is because I did a review on Terrifier 3 the other day. And that's before I saw any other reviews. I didn't want to get tainted. Because apparently in 2024, it's a thing to just hate on everything. Did my review. I loved it. It's a great rewind to the 80s where slasher films were in competition with each other all the time. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Then I started watching the reviews. And there wasn't a lot of hate. There was some hate. And the people that were hating on it were Gen, not to pick on a generation, but I'm just going to say it. It was the Gen Z generation that didn't go through what we went through as Gen Xers in the 80s. Now, in the 80s, there was a huge competition of who could outgross each other in the movies. And that's what we're going to go through tonight. So these are the people that were hating on Terrifier 3, which, it was a slasher film. It was gross. It was horrifying. And that's kind of the point of a slasher film, in case you didn't know. Plus, the people that are complaining about it, did you not see Terrifier, Terrifier 2, All Hallows Eve? I understand if you didn't see the short films before that. You kind of should have known what you was getting into. Talking about they gave a barf bag out to people when they went to the theaters and stuff like that, and people were using it. I personally saw a lady walk out with her children in tears. The children weren't in tears. She was. So, okay, let's get to my point. Back in the 80s, it was pretty much, you know what? I'm going to go further back. I'm going to go back to 1931. The movie was Dracula. And then the very one followed after that was Frankenstein. Back then, as bad as the special effects were, just Dracula lurking around, scared the crap out of the audience. And it wasn't a splatter film or anything. It was just suspense. It was terror. You know, Bram Stoker's Dracula was a great book if you ever get a chance to read it, if people still read nowadays. And Frankenstein also, Frankenstein's monster. Oh, it was just called Frankenstein. Another one. It was scary to those people generations ago back in 1931, 1933. Movies have gotten so much more graphic, so much more higher quality than they were back then. And each generation gets scared by certain things. We're at the point now where Gen X people were desensitized by this stuff. I don't know why people turn into marshmallows after that, but let's get into the movies I want to talk about. Now, I'm going to leave out the obvious ones like Nightmare on Elm Street, the Michael Myers movies, and the Friday the 13th movies. That was obvious. I'm going to talk about some eclectic movies that I liked that were gory as hell in the 80s, because this is what we did. Let's get started. Here comes the first one. Now, I don't know what year this movie came out. It was a series. There was 3 of them. It was bad. Not bad. It was good bad. It was good, but it was bad. It had a surprise ending. I'm not going to spoil it in case you youngins want to look this up and watch 1, 2, and 3. It was interesting. Splatter movie. We loved it back in the 80s. We still love it today. And this even, I think, I don't know what year this is written. I'm not here to give a history lesson. I think this is in the 80s. It may have been early 90s. I don't know. Correct me in the comments, because there was 3 movies. I get confused what years they came out. The Sleepaway Camp. See, I don't want to give spoilers. I'm just giving examples. This is what we had back in the 80s. Next movie. The next movie that came out was Return of the Living Dead. Now, you have to picture this. Night of the Living Dead came out in 1969, I think. Actually filmed it right here in Pennsylvania. When Return of the Living Dead came out, everybody thought it was going to be like a continuation or something because of the similar titles. No, it was a splatter film. It was gory as hell, and we loved it. Once again, I don't know the year it came out, but it was in the 80s. And they did a franchise out of that too, which we knew it was almost comical, but it was still splatter. It was still a lot of gore, stuff like we see in the Terrifier movies. Maybe not as rough as the last Terrifier movie. I'll give you that. But it was another one. It was another movie where they were trying to outgore each other as the series went by. Return of the Living Dead. We know it. People my age know it. All these movies, I'm going to not spoil them in case somebody hasn't seen them. Look them up. Watch them. It's Halloween. This is what we do. Next movie. Pieces. This was one of the goriest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I am going to beat it, though, with the rest of my list. And like I said, these movies are not in any particular order. Pieces is exactly what you would think it would be. And you can see on the movie poster there. Yeah, look up the preview, look up whatever you have to do. Another gory movie. Very gory. Cutting people up and stuff like that in pieces. That's what we had. What we liked. I recommend it highly. Next. Night of the Demons. Night of the Demons was a good story. It was gory as hell. It even went into Night of the Demons 2, which is still a good story. It was about Hull Hall. Yes, I have a problem talking sometimes. And it was about Angela, and she turned into a demon. And that's all I'm going to tell you. If you haven't seen it, you really need to look it up. Because there's so much more movies out there other than the most popular ones, like, Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, that you need to check out. It's Halloween. It's what we do. But there was a Night of Demons 1 and Night of Demons 2. Was there a 3? I'm going to have to look that up when I'm off camera. I don't think there was. Leave it in the comments if I'm wrong. No, I'm curious. I should really prepare for this better. Next movie, My Bloody Valentine. Now, the thing about this movie is, they made a remake in 3D quite a few years ago. But this was the original back in the 80s. And the thing about this movie is the very first rated R movie I went to see. And my sister took me. This is back when we used to get along. And, back then you're really not supposed to be a young kid and go see rated R movies. But she got me in and we watched it. And because she thought I would be scared shitless and just lose my mind. No, I loved it. I loved the movie. It was a little gory. It was creepy. It was scary as hell. Didn't give me nightmares because, let's face it, I'm crazy. But I still remember the thrill going to see my first rated R movie. And, splatter film. Splatter film. They never did a sequel, though. I always thought they were going to do a sequel. They did a remake of it, and it wasn't bad either. But we're going to talk about Gen X in the 80s right now. All right, next movie, Demons. Nothing to do with Night of the Demons. Totally separate movie. Demons. I saw this my first year at college when I went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I remember it because there was another dude that wanted to go see a movie, and neither one of us had girlfriends. So we went to see this movie in the theater because we got to see it for free because we were students. This was one of the goriest movies I've ever seen, especially early in life. I mean, you got to see like people getting their head ripped off and their necks all sticking out and everything like that. It was gross, and we loved it. We loved it. In fact, we loved it so much, we went to see Demons 2, which was like a couple weeks later. But when we went back, we both had girlfriends then. And yeah, they lost their minds, but we sat there and had fun. Check it out if you can. Just don't get it confused with Night of the Demons. But Night of the Demons is good too, so both of them are good. Check it out. Next movie. I know I was going to try not to put the mainstream movies in here like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, and Jason Voorhees, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre was gory as hell. All of them. Of course, they came out in the 80s, the original one. Even that one was just bloody disgusting, literally. That's what we had in the 80s. If you haven't heard of that one, then you must be living under a rock somewhere. So my original point tonight is splatter movies back in the 80s were all over the place. And I'm pretty sure that their mission was to outgross the movie before it. So, yeah, the bar was set pretty high. And That's all in the 80s. A lot of the movies were splatter films. We watched them, maybe even the late 70s. I'm not really sure, and maybe into the 90s too. I remember because I always watched splatter movies. I remember I watched the movie Scream. I don't have a graphic for that one, but you should have heard about the original movie Scream by now. That was the first splatter movie that I've seen where we could actually figure out who the killer was, and it kind of like changed the whole genre. I mean, it kind of changed the whole genre. Sure, they had the splatter and the gory guts and everything like that, but you had to actually sit there and figure out who the killer was. And I remember the first time I watched it, I'm trying to figure out who could be the killer, and they added the splatter and everything like that. It was one of my favorite movies to that point. I've got a lot of favorite movies. I'm not just a Star Wars nerd. But now it's October and Halloween season. I like talking about the horror movies, which, I watch a lot. What do you guys remember from the 80s? And what's your favorite slasher movie? I don't really have a favorite. I love them all. I know, like, the goriness, that movie Demons, that was pretty gory back in the day. And I still remember that one to this day. People are watching Terrifier now. The Terrifier series, some people just discovered it. They're like, oh, I didn't know about this. So they're watching Terrifier 3 first. And it was gory, and it has some scenes in it. Once again, no spoilers. If you haven't seen it by now, well, I'm sure you've watched a few other people's reviews, and people like to spoil everything. I'm not trying to spoil anything. I'm just going to tell you what I think is worth watching. Terrifier, go back and watch All Hallows Eve, Terrifier 2, and then watch Terrifier 3. You'll get it. It's a splatter film, and you don't see that nowadays very much in 2024. At least not videos or movies that are good. I think Terrifier is doing a really good job. It hasn't gotten cheesy yet. It's a little campy, and there's a fine line between campy and cheesy. It's graphically disgusting, in a good way. In a good way. To guys like me that missed the splatter films of the 80s. Because they stopped doing it. They took boobs out of horror movies a long time ago. And that's fine too. But that was like the whole formula back in the 80s of horror films. And if you watch Scream, they actually give you the rules. The only thing you don't talk about is the nudity. And it's just, I like splatter films. Or slasher films. Same thing. I don't know what else to say. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's start a discussion on this. But the movies I listed tonight are movies that I've always liked, and other than being mainstream, they're the grossest movies I could find. So let me know what you guys think, and if you have a suggestion, maybe you know something I haven't seen, let me know, because I'd love to watch it, and then maybe I'll do a review of an old movie. I like doing that too. All right, guys, I will talk to you next time. Thanks for sticking around this long. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Well, that wasn't too bad. If you haven't seen those movies he mentioned, you should give them a try. Don't forget, Bruce has an eBay store at Jenna Custom Toys to check out. Thanks for watching. May all your dreams be scary. Good night.
It's just Bruce, he don't bite. Hello.